So the epic units are definitely our strongest units in the game. Each faction has one. We definitely wanted these units to be game enders. Definitely useful for when your enemy is just kind of, holed up in, a tight defensive posture and you can't really break in.
If you played a lot of RTS, you kind of get to that point where the game kind of grinds down. You've won, you've got so many resources, but you're going to be playing for another half an hour. Well, with these epic units, they're really a way for you to kind of cash in all those right decisions you've made all along the way into a really big, awesome, epic unit for each faction. It's almost like Godzilla coming into the mix and kind of finishing it off.
So the Hand of Rook, which is the beta epic unit, is a really exciting unit for players to get their hands on. It is an amalgamation of structures that have been reconfigured into a floating factory.
Basically, you see your base pack up and lift off, or a big chunk of your base just packs up and then lifts up into the air and takes off flying.
So you've got this floating factory that is totally configurable, that can create units on the fly with this giant gun at the top.
And then have units, and then have units jump onto it.
Exactly, right. And then so when you're playing one of the other factions and you see one of these things rolling towards you, you're like, it's like a game ender, right? I mean, you better have your own epic unit from one of the other factions ready to go to counteract this thing, or you better have a massive army because it is tremendously powerful and a lot of fun to play.
It's a super fun toy.
Yeah. So the human epic, which we call the alpha, is this large, epic size.
It's a giant flying robot.
Yeah, it's a giant flying robot, basically. And it's actually the only unit on the humans faction that is controlled by a human. And it's super destructive. It's got a laser beam. That's its primary weapon.
Massive laser of death.
So, and it strikes in a beam across the landscape. So if you've got a large army amassed in front of an alpha and it takes a shot at it, it's not going to just take out one unit. It's going to take out a whole line of units. The other nice thing is that it takes damage and then finally it will charge up and release that damage back onto the other player. Anything within a certain radius will take a huge amount of damage, and that takes a while for it to power up, but when it goes off, it is super destructive.
And it's great to watch it battle against the other epics.
Yeah.
The Perjure is a ton of fun. I mean, if the goo is not already chaotic enough of something to be fighting against, once the goo Perjure gets out, it gets just horrific for whoever's playing against it. And what the Perjure is basically, it's a culmination of your goo. You have your mother goos and you have all your goos, and this is like the master goo that's gonna that's really gonna unleash some serious destruction. And basically, you combine a lot of goos together, and it builds and it grows, and it becomes this massive tentacled, amorphous creature of death that travels around the map. It's huge, it's undulating, it's bigger than any of the other goos. It rolls over all the terrain just like the other goos, traveling along, but it's got these big tendrils that come out. And basically it's got this power where it can drive over or move over things and consume them, doing damage to them.
These giant tentacles come out of the epic goo and then they plunge themselves into the ground and then they show up someplace else and destroy things.
So it makes it very deadly and very mobile.
Creates a ton of mayhem.